All right, there we go. We are back. Sorry about that. I know you could hear me, but I couldn't see that you could hear me. And yeah, so I wasn't sure for sure. So, anyways, welcome to the John F. Gately Show. It is now what, 12:04? 12:04. I'm 4 minutes late. You know I'm never late. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are 4 days, since it is 12:04, we are 4 days away from the election of our lifetimes. Every election is the election of our lifetime, of course. And sorry about that. Trying to run a business here. Just there we go. Mute that. Every day is the election of our lifetime, and we are now approaching what I thought we already approached, but we are now seem to be deep into an epidemic of Trump derangement syndrome. If you have not seen the video from WBZ that I just recently posted, I kind of borrowed it from WBZ. It is both sad and hilarious. This recent incident out of Stoneham. Let's cut to BZ.
Campaign sign vandal captured on camera. Surveillance video outside a home in Stoneham shows one woman taking out her frustrations on a Trump sign.
All right, so just follow along here.
The homeowner told us that he had the sign tied to his bushes, but even
the newscaster is kind of chuckling.
That wasn't enough to keep it from being ripped off of his property. As WBZ's Mike Sullivan shows us, Stoneham police are now investigating.
Caught on surveillance, a disgruntled
Why is it always some boomer? Why is it always a boomer?
Passerby ripping up an election sign and chucking it in a neighbor's yard.
Chucking it.
Disbelief, shock that somebody would actually do this.
Robert D'Amelio sits on his front steps in Stoneham. His tattered Trump sign is stuck not far from his feet. The whole interaction leaving him in awe.
That somebody would actually park their car halfway down the street, run
legit varsity level Boston accent there,
like a linebacker to my property, go on my property, take my sign that I purchased and try and rip it apart.
She had no clue it was tethered to a bush by a USB cable.
So you already assumed something might happen?
Unfortunately, yes. In this day and age, it's sad that we have to think this way, but I hate to say it. Maybe I'm psychic. She played the lottery.
The woman can be seen struggling to get the sign free. During the tirade, she manages to untie it and throw it.
Her being unhinged, I think that's a great word. To me, actually laughing and feeling sorry for somebody who got, I guess, triggered, if you want to call it, over words.
After talking with police.
All right, here's the good news. Somebody has purchased a new and bigger sign for Robert, the homeowner in Stoneham. So he's good to go. He has a new sign, but it is yet now I guess he has two signs. It is yet another incident of Trump derangement syndrome, which we've seen quite a lot of. Of course, most famously that we've covered here in Massachusetts is the whole Board of Selectmen in the town of Hanson. I mean, they are really deranged. We saw the hate speech that was written on the building in Yarmouth, right? I don't even want to repeat the words. You saw the picture. I went down there and did the report. There's been any number of incidences. I heard that there was a Trump supporter on Boston Common yesterday that was up there on X, Twitter, that somehow got pushed off his bike because he was a Trump. So they are out there. If Trump wins on Tuesday or whenever that happens to be, because it might be several days, we don't know what we're really into in terms of when we might have a definitive result. If you think that Trump is going to win by some giant landslide, I suppose that's possible. But if you're being realistic about this, I still think that the odds on result is that this is going to be an incredibly close election. I think we need to be honest about that. If you lived through the 2022 Fox News lie that we're going to have a red wave in 2022, if you live through that at all, you should be aware that this is most likely going to be a very close election. If you live in Massachusetts, which I'm assuming the vast majority of my viewers live in Massachusetts, if you live in Massachusetts and you know anybody that lives in one of those 7 swing states, be as nice as possible, but call them up and make sure they get out to vote. They got to get out to vote in that swing state. Plus, also, let's not forget that there are any number of local legislative races and important ballot questions here in Massachusetts, which you have to get out and vote for. I do believe that today, November 1st, is the last day that you can vote in person at your local polling place or town hall or wherever they have in-person voting. I voted on the first day it was available. It was opened at 9 a.m. I was there at 10. There were about 4 people in front of me. And that was, how long ago was that? Like a week and a half ago. There is a lot of interest out there. Lines are probably going to get, you've got to get out and vote on those local races, those ballot questions, and especially if you know anybody out in any of the swing states, And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate your patience with that technical glitch that we had just earlier. It should not come as a surprise. In fact, a couple of you were joking about it, that the man charged with painting the swastika on the Trump sign, as we reported last night, has a long history of radical far-left social media posts. So Frederick Laidlaw from Cohasset, going back to 2011, was grouping Republican and Tea Party members with Nazis. And obviously, the reason why you would spray a swastika on a Trump sign is to try to get people who don't know what's going on to equate those two things together. And MSNBC did that famous or infamously as they ran cross-ran visions of the Trump rally with the horrific Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden in 1939, and basically said this is just another 1939 at Madison Square Garden. Except at the Trump rally last Sunday, there was at least one prominently displayed Israeli flag at the Trump rally, because actually Jewish folks, a lot of Jewish folks, are now voting for Trump, and they're seeing the lowest association with the Democrat Party amongst Jewish voters that they've ever seen in the history of tracking that affiliation. We're going to talk about that later in this video or later in this live stream, because Portuguese voters in Fall River are not voting like they should be. And WBOR is very upset about that. And we're going to talk about that later in today's live stream. But next up is our jobs number. Would you believe that if the government would lie to us about where the president put an apostrophe in his Trump supporters are garbage statement, would you believe that the government would also lie to you about the jobs number? The jobs number came in this morning. It's a once-a-month jobs number for those of you who don't follow it every month. And it's a major indicator as to what the Federal Reserve might do with interest rates when they meet next Thursday. It came in at 12,000 new jobs nationwide. The expectation was 100,000 jobs, and even that number is fairly low, 100,000 jobs. 200,000 is fairly common, but it came in at $12,000. And here at CNBC, you can kind of see them like backpedaling and trying to apologize for the administration, because this is obviously 12% of what they expected. 12%. It's off by 88% of expectations. The thing is, if the expectations were for 100,000 jobs, the people who make those expectations for 100,000 jobs, they already knew about the hurricane and they already knew about the Boeing strike. And so when you put in an expectation for 100,000 jobs, you have already factored in the horrific hurricane and the strike. And even with that, it came in with a net of 12,000 jobs. Now, I know people who were out of work in Florida, Englewood Beach, because of the hurricane, because that was a real thing. But the expectation with the hurricane, we've all known about the hurricane for weeks. the expectation was $100,000, the 100,000 jobs, and the hurricane did not impact employment by 88% of the national number. And prior months have been revised again. In fact, we're going to watch a video in a quick second to show you the prior months have been revised 14 of the last 17 months. What is worse, and what is the core worry amongst people that are looking at the economy, is that the vast majority of the jobs that are being created are in government or healthcare. And if you understand the healthcare sector, most of your jobs in the healthcare sector are actually government jobs passing through nonprofits, hospitals, and whatnot. Those are actually funded by the government. Those are effectively the vast majority of healthcare jobs. The vast majority of healthcare jobs are effectively government jobs. And so since the government is actually not creating new wealth, and actual manufacturing jobs, for instance, are slumping, that relays or indicates the overall concern that Americans have about where the economy is going. Sure, we have strong GDP numbers because GDP includes government spending. And I don't know if you have noticed, but recently we've seen interest rates go back up. We had interest rates at a low in mid-September of about 6.1% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. And now, when I checked it yesterday, it was at 7.1%, well into the 7 handle for a 30-year fixed mortgage, according to Mortgage News Daily. That's because our government spending is wildly out of control. Let's bring up Wexler to explain the jobs situation here.
How is it that the Biden admin keeps claiming that jobs numbers are stronger than ever when those of us living in the real world know that isn't true? Well, let's look at the numbers we just got. Biden's Department of Labor reported that last month's job openings blew expectations out of the water. It was 8.14 million job openings compared to the estimated 7.95 million. But they do this every month. They cook the books right in front of our eyes. And they do this by revising down the previous month's data.
So what they do is they get the headline, everybody trades off the headline, and then when no one's paying attention, the following month, they revise the numbers.
Oh, that's odd. The Biden Department of Labor has done this for 14 of the last 17 months. I believe the formal economic term for that is bullshit. Now, someone on the left might try to argue that even though these estimates are revised down later, it's still a net positive of job openings in the economy. That could be true, except that almost every single job opening in the country.
Yeah, you should have a net positive, because if you had a net negative, we'd be in 2008 situation here.
Right now is for a government job. Look at this chart. It goes back to 2010. Government jobs are approaching record highs. And since all the job openings added to the economy are actually just blood-sucking, wealth redistributing bureaucratic burdens, you might be wondering,
wow, like I couldn't have said it better.
If all new job openings are for government jobs, then what's happening to private sector job openings? Oh, they're crashing, of course. This is a Bolshevik economy.
Bolshevik economy. Excellent report. If you're not producing, and this has a huge impact for our economy in 2025 and for whoever becomes president, if you're not producing, and government employees do not produce, if you're not producing, then we are in a very precarious situation for 2025. 2024 seems more to me than ever like 1988. In 1988, both parties had an inherent interest to tell you that the economy was good. The Reagan administration was basically looking for a third term with George Bush, and Mike Dukakis was going out and telling you the lie about the Massachusetts miracle. And so they both wanted the economy to look good. And I'm old enough to remember what happened like on January 2nd, the first business day of 1989. Oh my God, like boom, close the door, shut out the lights. The economy came to a crashing halt in 1989, which eventually led to Bush's defeat in the presidential campaign of 1992, because the economy sucked in 89, 90, and 91, and going into 92. The recession finally came. in 89. It was like, boom, here it is. That's what this year seems to me. That's what this year seems to me, that the Biden administration has done everything to prop up the economy this election season, and we are possibly looking at the worst of all outcomes, which is higher interest rates. Again, interest rates are back up into the sevens for a 30-year fixed mortgage, and stagnant job growth. This is something called stagflation. Stagflation, right? It's a shrinking economy and inflation. It's the worst of all worlds, and it's almost always due to out of control government spending. The only way to get out of this situation is to increase our productivity or to inflate away, in other words, tax you. So either inflation is going to go up, or we're going to have to find a massive way to add productivity to our economy. What does that mean for Massachusetts? Well, I just read this article in Commonwealth Beacon. New BU study touts immigration as essential to Massachusetts economy. So, and by the way, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll get to your comments in a minute. Basically, this study says that net outflows are being, how do I want to say, replaced by immigrants. Immigrants offset out migration, author argues, and fill essential high and low skilled positions. And basically they're saying if it wasn't for immigration, illegal immigration, we'd be bleeped in Massachusetts. We'd be absolutely positively bleeped. And I think at the very bottom of this article, Commonwealth Magazine has the money quote. They leave it to the end. Thank goodness the state has so many foreign-born residents immigrating, the author said of the study. If they were not coming in, Massachusetts would have a long-term problem. No, we already do have a long-term problem. You cannot immigrate your way out of the structural problem that we have in Massachusetts, which is that we're not competitive, especially on a tax and affordability basis. We are not competitive. It's incredibly expensive to live here, and they tax you left and right. New Hampshire, no income tax. Florida, no income. There are other places to go, but Massachusetts just doesn't want to change. It's the same with Mayor Wu, right? It's the same with Mayor Wu. Anybody paying attention, which would have been like people like me in the real estate business, anybody paying attention for the last, year and a half, 2 years could have told you that there was a commercial real estate bubble happening, popped consequence of your pandemic policies. Your vaccine passports killed your downtown. It killed your vaccine passports, your wild overreaction to the Chinese Wuhan virus, which was funded by the government, funded by, like you can't make this up, killed your downtown office values. Anybody who was paying attention could have seen that was going to have an impact upon tax revenue in the city of Boston. But no, instead of, we should probably take a quick note of this and actually maybe reduce our spending. No, instead, foot on the pedal with spending, Mayor Wu. Governor Healy, foot on the pedal with spending. Joe Biden, spending. All they do is spend. That's all they do, because they're hoping that it gets inflated away or produced away. But if neither of those things happen, then you end up with the worst possible type of economy, which is known as stagflation. I was just in downtown Boston on Tuesday. As you know, I go there often. I'm there a lot. And it was just sad as I walked around the financial district in the down Battery March Street building my father used to work at a long time ago. And I was alone on the sidewalk on a Tuesday. at 4:15. Like nobody on the street. And to think that you're not planning for that and how it's going to affect your economy, you're asleep at the wheel and irresponsible. And in the meantime, Mayor Wu, you're looking to raise taxes on the sector that is struggling the most, right? And as Seth, whatever his name is, I can't pronounce his last name, the tech guy, Seth the tech guy, his names begin with a P, pointed out, if you're going to have a tax increase for the commercial real estate business, which is what just happened or what seems to be about to happen, with absolutely no budget cuts, that doesn't seem like a balanced approach, does it? It's not. It's not a balanced approach. But that is what is on the ballot Tuesday. Understand from a national perspective. We have to cut our government spending. And another really good reason to get out and vote on Tuesday and to get your friends in any swing states to get out on Tuesday. Because if we don't start cutting our national government spending, you're going to be paying for that in the form of stagflation, which means that you might not only have to pay more for inflation, but you also might lose your job. Imagine how much it costs for hamburger when you can see the price go up and you don't have a job to pay for it, right? That's what is at stake on Tuesday. Let's make that perfectly clear. Apparently, and BUR is worried about this, Fall River voters are embracing Trump in his harsh stance on immigration by Ben Burke, the Public's radio. By the way, I got in a little spat with Beth Healy on Twitter X the other day, where she asserted that WBUR was an independent news organization. I'm here to tell you that BUR is not independent. They take government money, and they are not a news organization. They're neither of those two things. And so in this navel-gazing episode here, Fall River voters are embracing Trump. Nice picture of Fall River. They are basically talking about how these multiple generation Portuguese descendants who originally voted for President Kennedy, they were President Kennedy Democrats, have now basically they're straying from the Democrat Party. While there's no sophisticated polling about how Portuguese Americans vote, Mello said that anecdotally, she sees that the loyalty Portuguese Americans traditionally had for the Democratic Party is fading. She said the same is happening to the community's sense of solidarity with new immigrants. Right. I mean, if you come to America and you obey the rules that were passed in the early 60s, and now a bunch of people are coming to your country, which is now you have adopted it, and it has adopted you, and you are now an American. And now you see people coming to the country who are living in hotels for free, and you're paying their meals and their transportation. And you're like, what? This is not the American dream that they came to enjoy, that they came to work hard to achieve in Fall River. And, you know, I used to work in politics. I used to be a Democrat. I know it might be hard to believe. And I did a lot of politics in New Bedford, and Fall River and New Bedford have a lot of parallels. And let me tell you, I mean, when I remember one time I was there when Senator Kennedy was walking down the boulevard in New Bedford. And I mean, you have never seen. So, I mean, they loved the Kennedy, just like you've never, I've seen Ted in a lot of different situations, but I had never seen the type of outpouring that the Portuguese American people had in New Bedford had for Senator Kennedy. And I had seen him in all other sorts of other places across the state. But that is fading due to the reality of this immigration that we now have, which is completely illegal and ruining our country. It's ruining our country. And BUR here is like, this might be a problem. This might be a problem. Let's take a look. By the way, we have over 100 people joining us today. Thank you so much. as long as the glitch wasn't in the Dominion voting machine. So yeah, we figured out the glitch. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Now, I've heard that not including government jobs, the number is actually negative. That is true. So, Evan, if you took the government jobs and deleted it from the report and also deleted the healthcare jobs, in fact, I don't even think you have to delete the healthcare jobs, but if you deleted just the government jobs, the report is actually negative. I do believe that is true. Someone could verify that for me. Evan follows up. Yes, the economy is horrible. But what's worse is the amount of people trying to convince us it's good for some reason. Well, a lot of people have a vested interest in doing that because, of course, it's an election season, right? It's an election season. One thing that people cannot give you a vested interest in trying to convince you that it's good, and that is the 30% increase in natural gas utility bills that some of you are enjoying due to the climate change religion that is gripped Massachusetts. Now, I was very happy to learn, and I was a couple of days late on learning this, but the heavy-duty truck ban that was due to effect or go into effect on January 1st of 2025 has now been delayed 1 full year. So I actually have a family member that sells heavy-duty trucks. He was very concerned about this. And in mid-October, they have now come to their senses, and they have delayed the heavy-duty truck ban. Just similar to the way that they have the gun control bill, that they keep on finding provisions of the gun control bill that they're like, oh, that one's wrong. Oh, we gotta go to delay that one, delay them. It's a long-term practice of the legislature to pass a piece of legislation, not really know what's in it. And then after they read, they got to pass the bill to find out what's in it, right? And after they read it, then they're like, oops, that paragraph's unconstitutional, or that paragraph's unachievable. And then they just get rid of it. By the way, we are still waiting for the Massachusetts House of Representatives to double down on stupid and approve the climate bill. Ron Mariano has announced that they're going to do the climate bill and the economic development bill on the same day. And so I know it's so bad that the state representatives are actually going to have to come into the state house in person to vote. And several of the state representatives, like Representative Conley, the commie from Cambridge, were very upset that they had to come into person to vote on the climate bill to actually do their job. But they're coming. And the reason why your electric bills are going up, in headline here from Fox 25, natural gas rate hikes approved in Massachusetts. Here's how much they will go up this winter. It's actually not this winter. I believe the impact goes up right now, November 1st. About 500,000 Eversource customers can expect to see their bills increase by 25 to 30%, officials say. That means $250 bill can become $325. So why is that? And why will it get worse in Massachusetts? And the reason why it'll get worse was the aforementioned climate bill, which is actually going to degrade our ability to import natural gas. Obviously, natural gas is not native, so to speak, to Massachusetts. We have to get it from someplace else. We could get a lot more of it from places like Pennsylvania if we had a more robust pipeline, which they keep on delaying and causing trouble. They don't want it. The climate nuts don't want any competition. Climate nuts don't want any competition, so we don't have more natural gas from Pennsylvania like we should have it. Instead, we have to buy it from elsewhere. And I just totally lost my train of thought. And why is this costing you more? Well, Representative Nick, and God, I can't pronounce this guy's name. So somebody, I'm just going to call him Nick. No offense, Representative, but I can't pronounce your last name to save my life. So Nick, Representative Nick has the answer. Democrats in Boston and their failed progressive clean energy policies are destroying Massachusetts and making it impossible for hardworking families to make ends meet. Eversource is increasing natural gas rates this winter by 30%. And here's the reason, right? Nick has the answer. Eversource cites the driver of these changes is higher costs related to energy efficient programs mandated, quote, to support the Commonwealth's goals for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. In other words, the climate religion is now sending you the bill. The climate religion is now sending you the bill. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but the other day, you're now going to be liable for another $521 million to install the cable that is going to run from Hydro-Quebec down here to Massachusetts because of delays in building the cable through the state of Maine. And Commonwealth Beacon totally missed that story because they said it was still going to be cheaper than wind power. Wind power is like $16 a kilowatt, if I have the number right. The hydro number from Quebec is like $8 a kilowatt. But if you get natural gas power, guess how much that is, class? Is it more or less than $8 a kilowatt? It's less. It's $6.50 a kilowatt. So if we had more natural gas powered electricity, we'd have a nice, dependable year-round supply of that wouldn't be variable based upon whether the wind blew or whether the blade fell off the turbine. And we'd be paying less for it. By the way, excellent. I wish I could pronounce this guy's name, but almost every single tweet that this guy puts out, I agree with. Make no mistake about it. This is a direct result of the draconian laws and regulations by out-of-touch politicians who care more about their extremist agenda than they do about families being forced to decide between heating their home and putting food on the table. Elections have consequences. Time to end one-party rule in Massachusetts. Thank you, Representative Nick. And again, no offense that I can't pronounce your name. It is no coincidence, and it doesn't go, how should I say this? It doesn't escape J.D. Vance that wind power might not be what it's all cracked up to be. Here he is on Rogan.
Yeah, one of the things that Trump talked about that a lot of people probably weren't aware of was the damage that these wind turbines are doing to whales. I wasn't totally aware of it.
I had no idea until I watched your podcast with him.
I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't read about it until after I talked to him. And it's a real problem.
It's a very real problem.
And what a conundrum for people that are so-called environmentalists to think the wind is like the cleanest option when it's not. The turbines don't last. You can't recycle them.
It doesn't work in salt water in particular, which is what most of the world's water is. I think wind is the biggest scam out there. It's total bullshit.
It's also pollution. When I see those
I love that Vance swears on a regular basis. He swears almost as much as I do.
Gigantic wind
They're
tunnel.
ugly.
They're gross.
They're ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought this, where were me and my wife? We used to be into road trips before we had a Secret Service detail. And we took a road trip. The good old days, man. We took a road trip through Kansas or Nebraska, or maybe it was Iowa. It was one of the, I mean, we went through all three of those states, but I can't remember where. You just go for miles and miles and you see nothing but wind turbines. And it's like, this is beautiful American countryside that used to be.
We're doing the same exact thing off of our oceans here in New England.
Green rolling hills. And now you have these disgusting dystopian wind turbines. I'm sorry. They are ugly. They're gross. Die on this hill. They're ugly. I don't want them in American society.
There you go. That is what this election is about. Way to go, J.D. Vance, with a great quote and great chip there. By the way, when we're talking about our oceans, the Biden administration, and I don't believe that the Trump administration would do this, but the Biden administration just sold your oceans for about $50 an acre. And here we have Jerry Lehman of the, how do I want to say this? New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association explain what's going on off of the coast of Maine in regards to
Let's just do the simple math of what happened yesterday. So 8 lease sites were up for grabs. Here are your 8 sites. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The only 4 that were purchased yesterday were at $50 minimum bid. That's 562, 564, 568, and 567. Well, let's do the math on that. $21,954,800 US for 439,096 acres. That's $50 an acre. Well, the procurement and compensation said that 25% of that initial bid, if the compensation package, 12.5% goes to onshore, offshore infrastructure, 12.5% goes to fisheries compensation. Let's talk about that. Well, that's $2.7 million for fisheries compensation. It's a 33-year lease. You divide that by $2.7 million equals $81,818.18 per year. Last year alone, the trawling fleet.
I love how this guy's like, he's keeping it real. He's on a lobsterman's boat, and they are also floating. Like, so you get that, like the effect.
It's not $40 million. One out of multiple fisheries. You're taking up 15% of the ocean floor, and you offered us less, what, 1/10 of 1%? That's not.
Not for nothing, but if I had the financing, I would get a 33-year lease for $22 million on 440,000 acres.
Compensation. I hate to tell you. 2 loaded pizzas at your typical medium-run pizza store is worth more than $50. Me and my wife went to Arby's the other day with no kids before a football game. It was $25. So you're telling me that I could take my wife to Arby's 2 nights for the same price as I could pay for 1 acre of our waters? And
because what? Because of the religion of climate change and also the giant vested interest, campaign donors that make money off of, as JD Vance called it, the biggest scam, which is wind power, the biggest scam, especially when we have just a couple of states away all the natural gas we would need for the foreseeable future, And understand the only reason why they want to degrade natural gas is because otherwise all of these renewables don't make any economic sense. Hey, I'm all for a better mousetrap, but I am not for a better mousetrap if you're limiting my choice. And so it's the only mousetrap. If you want to create renewable energy that's better than natural gas, and by better, I mean as dependable and at least the same price, if not cheaper, and if you can create that, and you can do it by harnessing the sun or the windmill or whatever, nuclear power, then great. But don't try to basically outlaw a source of energy so that now you're the only choice. And that's what the far left, which is totally running this country right now, and on Tuesday you can change that. That's what the far left is doing. Understand that there's not enough money. They can't take enough money from you to be happy. They cannot take enough money from, and that is since we're at it, the essential flaw in the Boston business community that accepted the change to raise their tax rates. If any of those people think that that is actually going to be a temporary tax rate for commercial real estate in Boston because that's what the law says, let me assure you that when it comes to the end of that window, which is a couple of years, when it comes to the end of that window, they will change the law to make that tax rate permanent. If you think that they're only going to do it for a couple of years, you are as high as a kite as that lady ripping the lawn sign out of the front yard, right? You're crazy. You are lying to yourself. Because just with like the millionaire's tax, with that property tax, once they put it in there, they're just going to continue to lower the number to which it to which it applies to. And you can see that from Monica Tippett's nut. She's dropping the hint. Hold on a second. There we go. That's better. The millionaire's tax won't eliminate the T's fiscal cliff, Tippett's nut says. You might remember her from the internet fame earlier this year when she wanted to put up tolls all over Massachusetts, including at the border with Rhode Island and New Hampshire, where she said pickup trucks were like 18-wheelers. She had no idea why anybody would want one. And now she's basically saying the millionaire's tax won't eliminate the fiscal cliff. Understand the millionaire's tax. Thank you so much for joining us today, by the way. I'm astounded by how many people have joined this live stream. Thank you. Understand that the millionaire's tax exceeded expectations because it went into effect in late 2022, was passed in late 20, and it applied to basically everybody for 2023. And so the revenue that was produced from it in April, when people pay their taxes of this year, was exceeding expectations because that was the first time that people had to pay the tax. And now that they've had to pay the tax, now they got whacked and they didn't really have time because you have to move out of the state in order to avoid the tax. Now that they've gotten whacked, understand what's going to happen. Revenue from that tax, I can write the headline right now. Revenue from that tax next year is not going to be the same. It's going to be lower than, I'm going to eat my words if this is wrong. It's going to be lower than last year's because now that people got whacked, they're going to say, what the fuck? We're moving out of here, right? They're going to move to Florida or New Hampshire where they don't, right? It's clear. And all the far lefties are celebrating how it made all this money. Oh, yeah. That's going to be a one-time thing because I don't know if you know this about wealthy people. Most of them are fairly smart. And if they're not smart, they're usually at least smart enough to hire smart accountants. And they will smarten up and say, wow, I could have saved X amount of dollars if I lived some. Here we go. Hurricanes, Florida. I don't know, but Wyoming's nice or New Hampshire's nice, right? They're going to move. And so what you're going to see year after year is a lower return on the millionaire's tax. And this year's return will probably be the highest proportionally that we'll see. And that every year it goes down, there'll be additional pressure from far left nut jobs, no pun intended, I guess, sort of, to lower the millionaire's tax. And it's going to be also, it's going to be like, it's more just that we make it against people that have 800,000, 700,000, 300,000. And eventually it'll apply to everybody, right? Or just about everybody. That's where we're going with this. That's where we're going like this, because we do have socialist state representatives. And by the way, the only difference between a socialist and a communist is how you spell the word, right? There's no difference between those two things. A socialist politician pretending to work, Mass Fiscal says, with bags full of taxpayer money. So State Representative Mike Conley, who's a commie from Cambridge, as we referenced earlier in today's show, for this Halloween, I'm embodying a character called Massive Additional Funding for the MBTA. Tax the rich, fund the T. And here he is at Central Square, dressed up in a Trump-like, maybe he didn't recognize the parallel. He's dressed up in a Trump-like safety vest. It almost looks like he's ready to get on a garbage truck. Holding figurative bags of money that he did not produce, because as a government employee, he does not produce anything. He does not add productivity to the economy at all, ever. He does not do that. He's holding bags of your money. And it's not enough for him or for Monica Tippett. It's not, or for anybody in the Democrat Party. And that's what's on the ballot on Tuesday. Great to have you with here. Let's see. We have another comment here. Evan is on fire with comments today. By the way, if you want to type in your comment, you can. Fun fact: the millionaire's tax is where the Patriots stink right now. Yeah, I'm sure. I brought you this story earlier this year, and now finally, thank you, Massachusetts school superintendent candidate who lost offer over lady's email files suit. So here's Vito Perrone. Perrone, I think is how you say it. Vito Perrone. He saw his contract to lead the East Hampton Public Schools rescinded in early 2023 because when he received it, he read it over and he wrote back to the school committee, which was made up entirely of female members, and he wrote an email that started like this: ladies, good evening. I perused the unemployment contract and have 3 requests, wrote in the start of his email. Oh, the horror that he would address them as ladies since they were all women. They were all women, and he addressed them as ladies. Now, can you use the term ladies like in a derogatory fashion? Sure. If you're addressing the boys' high school football team and you say, ladies, have a seat, you sucked in the first half, that might be somewhat inappropriate. Or if you say, like, lady, you better learn how to drive that car, or lady, let me explain to you, right? You can use the word lady or ladies in a derogatory fashion. We can all admit to that. But if you use it in the simple phrase like ladies and gentlemen, except you don't use and gentlemen because there are no gentlemen to address. If you just use it as a salutation in the most generic, neutral way possible, that is not an unprofessional microaggression. And the money quote from this lawsuit. This lawsuit credits Megan Harvey, who remains on the school committee, with saying the following thing. And of course, this is according to the lawsuit, and I'm sure Megan Harvey will have a chance to refute this if it should go to trial. I burst out in complete laughter when I read this. We cannot give an oppressor, Mr. Vito Perrone, any opportunity to explain away the oppression, according to the lawsuit. And so what this school committee did is they actually rescinded his job offer, and then they had him join the Zoom session, and then they informed him that he lost his job offer with no hearing, because ladies was an unprofessional microaggression, and we can't possibly allow him to explain himself. We can't allow the oppressor an opportunity to explain his way as oppression. Oh, God. All right. So any other comments here? Hey, I had a great time. We will be back. I'm going to go walk the dog on the beach because it's like an Indian summer day out there. It's wicked hot. It's not so much the humidity as it is the stupidity. We're going to do a lot more live streams between now and Election Day and probably on Election Night. I'm John F. Gately. You can call me Jack. We'll keep you posted. Have a great day. Bye-bye.